So we wanted to kind of finish up today with kind of a new session, and it's called the DTC Showcase. As I think a lot of you guys have probably noticed, throughout the day we've had a lot of smaller brands, and we've had, I think what Jim introduced as micro-influencers join us, and it's been really interesting to just kind of how things have progressed here at GELF. I know when we started years ago, we were primarily focused on, shall we say, retailers. And as some of these guys will tell you, especially in Asia, retailers aren't that relevant to the consumer. So we saw the big move to brands and direct to consumers, all the way back to the kind of Warby Parkers when they were, the digital natives started coming out. We started noticing what we called global natives not too long ago. And they came in many kind of sizes and shapes, as you just saw with this last panel. I mean, we started the day with Patagonia on stage and with Speedo on stage. And we've wrapped up with some of the newer brands that are just emerging. In fact, I was kind of joking with Jim earlier as we were trying to figure out what the micro multinational is, and I said, I think you have to have sold out of your garage in the last 2 or 3 years to be considered one of those. So what I really wanted to do to wrap up today was just to bring a couple of thought leaders together to really just talk not necessarily logistics or international search, but really what does it take to kind of get a brand up and going, and not just up and going to serve the US market, but to kind of make these brands, say, global ready out of the gate. So I have forgotten my cheat sheet, which I hope Jim might hook me up with. And but while he's doing that, I'm going to let these guys introduce themselves, but just really quickly, June, thank you for coming back up, and thank you for all your support over the years. Derrick is actually kind of a behind-the-scenes guru at GELF as well. In fact, June, I think, found us through Derrick. So Derrick has been helping us out, and I've known John for forever, but I think this is your first GELF, right? Yeah. So John has been an expert, and he'll talk a little bit about, he's much as a coach as a consultant these days. But yeah, we met back in the early days of GELF when we were looking at power sellers and things like that, folks that were selling through eBay. And some of the very first, kind of global e-commerce success stories very much came from that. In fact, when Jim and I did the first study, when was that, 2008, 2007, 2008, we mentioned Amazon and eBay. I mean, it was interesting that eBay was, kind of such a bigger force at that time. eBay has not gone away, by the way. I know we were talking with Casey not too long ago, and they're actually doing some substantial work, business through eBay. But at that time, it was very much the small specialty e-commerce company that was killing it internationally. I mean, even like we had Will up here, and they're already at 30%. So what we want to do is kind of make this engaging. We'd love to kind of pull questions in from the crowd. So without further ado, I think I'll ask June to introduce or reintroduce herself. But since we're on camera, I'm going to have to make you go through the whole introduction. And then Derrick, say a quick hello, and then we'll go to John, and then I'll kind of get into a little bit more of what we're going to discuss. June?
Sure. Hi, my name's June Van Heel. I am head of international at Bala. Some of you guys might have seen Bala at Shark Tank or on Shark Tank. Previously I was general manager of Asia Pacific at Manduka. And yes, I had a name change, so last GELF I was June Pei. So, but I spoke earlier, so thanks for everyone who stuck around.
Hey everyone, I'm Derrick. Thanks for having me today. I'm the founder of OPTE. You can find us at OPTE.com. OPTE is a all-in-one beauty and skincare device that detects, corrects, and prevents spots like hyperpigmentation from forming on your skin. We premiered at CES 2019, 2020, and I've also, before founding OPTE, I was a member of the early CPG days, direct-to-consumer at The Honest Company, and also worked at Manduka with June at one point.
Great, thanks.
And I'm John Lawson. I am the CEO, founder of ColderIce Media. I am a business coach. I really think that's kind of where I'm landing right now, because before people can even get to the point where they need some consulting, they need coaching, you know, and that's what I'm finding with a lot of the SMBs that I deal with. My background is I came out of Accenture, which is a consulting company, and they just make stuff up and then fix it for you. That's kind of what they do. So I learned a lot about that from them. Yeah, they create problems and then they fix it. You didn't even know you had the problem. You know. Anyway, so yeah, that's me.
Great. And I also want to give a shout out to Bernice Marlini, who kind of came up with this concept. She couldn't end up joining, and she was actually going to be moderating this. So what we want to do is kind of start off with just, you know, as you're taking a DTC and making it global ready, I'm going to ask everybody to just kind of weigh in on what should be your first 5 hires, for instance, and it doesn't have to be 5. What's the right way to kind of get organized so that even if you're not necessarily global today, it's easy or you're ready to go global? And then, you know, how do you balance this need to potentially spend freely with being smart about the use of investments? And what we've got here is so Derrick's going to kind of talk a little bit about his startup. He did have some, you know, some resources, we'll say, and I'll let him expand on that a little bit. But it wasn't like he could just, you know, wave a wand and money appeared. He had to make the case for it. June, you've joined a new organization, and you are the go global person there. So again, more of a Shark Tank, more of a kind of a celebrity, you know, driven brand. And then John, like we said, you know, you've worked with a wide range of companies, but much more of that eBay seller, that 3P seller. I don't know if you've coached any of the Chinese sellers that we talked about here at the last GELF, which I think, if I remember correctly, Jim, that was the February of 2020 was when the number of Chinese sellers on Amazon surpassed the number of US-based sellers. So that is an interesting dynamic that's out there. So Derrick, why don't we start with you? Tell us a little bit about, you know, kind of how you built the business, and again, with the idea being, how can I make sure that this is kind of global ready out of the gate?
Yeah, sure. You know, I think these first 5 hires will be different for every organization. When building out OPTE, it was really clear to us, since it's a brand new technology, new innovation, you know, nothing on the market exists like it, that we would first need to start with our customer service. So those were the first 2 hires that we made, was on the customer service side. Those who can, you know, 2 excellent resources who can field questions from our pre-purchasers and as well as our post-purchasers. And we thought that was really important for us. I mean, we were introduced at CES. There was a lot of pent-up demand for an interest in OPTE prior to launch. So we ended up launching with a 30-person wait list. And so there's a lot of questions that can come. 30,000 person wait list. There's a lot of questions that can come about, hey, asking more about this device, what it does, who it's for. And then, you know, after customer service, we hired a social media person to really kind of take a lot of the content that we would create with our an internal design resource that was also necessary for us. We knew that we're a beauty brand. We wanted to take that in-house and build a strong creative team. And so really partnering that marketing person with our creative person was very critical for us. You know, as you had mentioned earlier, that we had you know, pretty, you know, unfair advantages for this business, not only just solid tech that I had to be able to start the company, but also the support of our investment firm M13 as well as P&G Ventures, which truly helped us get a lot of things that normal startups wouldn't necessarily have access to. Resources that were part of you know, the team from a BI perspective, from just a lot of knowledge as well. Consumer insights also was a key thing on the P&G Ventures side as well. So it was a really great initial build up to building the go-to-market launch for the brand.
So one of my favorite conversations last night was about some personality assessment test that people were talking about at the dinner table. And I remember you talked a little bit about that. Where does that come into the picture? I mean, that sounds almost Well, I was going to make a metaverse joke, but it's too late in the day for that.
We actually made it a critical component of our hiring process. So we didn't really have, so the personality assessment that we went with is called Acumax. It's widely used, really great program. You take this assessment in less than 5 minutes, and it kind of tells you what the person is wired for. And then you could actually know how you're wired just based off the questions that you answer. But then also, for candidates, you could put that index or the results for a person and match it against a profile, a career profile that you create to see if they're 70% match, 40% match, or 100% match, just based off of their answers. We found that as using it as part of a tool, it helped us. As a startup, you don't have a lot of time, you don't have a lot of resources to make a mistake when it comes to hiring. So just knowing that our venture firm, had been using that for their candidates. We saw the power of it as well when we were just amazed by what this 5-minute test, or not a test, this 5-minute assessment can tell you about a person. It was just really a great tool for us to help find the right people and ensure that we had and formed a really solid core team.
And so June, kind of a family business is what you've joined now, which always has some interesting dynamics, which of course we are on video, so I'll leave it to you to share those. But maybe a little bit of the kind of pre-Shark Tank world and the post-Shark Tank world. And again, you weren't there in the beginning, but what are some of the, maybe what's some of the advice you would give them now, looking back, to like kind of be maybe more global ready than maybe they were, because they brought you in obviously to become global ready?
Yeah, so the brand is incredibly rich in marketing and creative, and so our creative content, marketing, PR teams are very robust, and I think you can definitely see that on Bala's Instagram and website, etc. I think the product development team is kind of next in its size. However, the brand until recently has not really focused on global and operations, and I actually see that in a lot of direct-to-consumer brands, and also I think previously at Manduka we've probably seen that a little bit as well. Operations is easily overlooked, and it's such a crucial aspect of your business, especially if you want to go abroad, and there's also a huge amount of cost savings included in that, and so I think that was a crucial hire who actually just started a week after I did, and so I was very excited about that. But it's funny because earlier when you were mentioning about the 5 people you would hire, I was thinking I would hire 4 ops people and me, But it's that crucial and that easily overlooked. But especially now, I know everyone here's heard about logistics challenges all day, but especially now where supply chain is so difficult. It's really important that as you're expanding globally, you have a really strong partner who can help facilitate that, not from just an inventory angle, but also, inbound as well. And so, I think go with it.
Are there enough ops people out there? I mean, like I was listening to Robin last session, and she's actually got, she's relatively young and has got great experience already, but I mean, my daughters aren't saying, I can't wait to get into ops out of college, So, I mean, how do you find great people?
So I think the best, at least from my experience, the best kind of ops people are the ones that really understand all aspects of your business. So I'm not necessarily talking ops as in just logistics, but possibly even sales ops or even customer service background. Someone who kind of understands the all-encompassing aspects of the business, that it's not just moving product, but how it impacts, if something doesn't arrive on time, like how it impacts your launches and your campaigns. And you're also working with vendors all the time and factories, and QC and quality is such a huge aspect of ops as well, that I think is often pushed on product and overlooked, because product always wants to focus on product development. So yeah, I think that it's crucial to find, maybe it doesn't even have to be an operations person, but someone who really understands like different aspects of the business.
So there's probably some part of that assessment test that is, really
Yeah,
important to
sure.
that. So John, I think sometimes when people think eBay sellers, it's like that one person. So it's like they don't hire anybody because they try to outsource everything that they can. But share what you can. You're a man of many stories. So.
So eBay is in this country is kind of like, Amazon is where it's at for a lot of these businesses. A lot of them have started in, the last 2 to 5 years that I'm dealing with, and they're a mom and pop type organization. But what they didn't really expect, I think, was it's like, okay, everybody needs this. Right? So we're going to start launching here, but we're getting orders from all over the place. So it's like, well, we want to be everywhere. I'm like, okay, that's cool. But, honestly, the lift of, and this is just what I tell them, I'm like, the lift that you're going to get for international is probably 10, 15, maybe 20%, right? On a good day, and the thing is, multiplication by 0 is still 0. So if your business is not performing here in America, just, hey, let's throw on, all these other places, and there's a core problem that we got to deal with. And I love what you said about the first hires, both of you guys. If they're going to hire somebody, I always tell them start with, customer support. Because customer support in the e-commerce business, I think, is similar to old school, the mailroom. Right? You would learn all about the product, all about, every question that people ask you about that product are areas for improvement. And as they get more and more aware in that position, then I'm like, then you can move them up, move them up next to you and help replace you first and those kinds of things. So, then finally, I'm all about, since these are small and nimble companies, I'm telling them to check out Amazon, right? And just use Amazon just for fulfillment, get into the market, test it, see if it'll actually work before you spend the money and all of the things that you're gonna have to do to build that cross-border selling.
Perfect segue into my next question, which was, when Bernice and I were talking, she was like, look, a lot of times I have to tell them, job number one is the squeeze worth the juice when it comes to international? Because it's not easy, it's not inexpensive, and sometimes it's not the right way to go out of the gate. Yeah, suddenly, I got a bunch of orders in from Canada or the UK or Australia. Well, there's demand there. Any thoughts on that? Just advice that you'd give on, when to look for being ready? And John, you can tackle it if you want.
No, I want to know. When do you pull the trigger? You're seeing, it's a great question. I'm curious.
Go ahead.
Personally, I think when you're feeling that your business is hot in the US is likely when people are starting to hear about it overseas as well. And to me, it's never too early, but my focus is also on international. I think the brands that you're helping with may be like too small, but once you're at a certain revenue level and you're starting to see orders come in from overseas or even Canada, I think you definitely can check out your web search and traffic and see where that demand's coming from and can start targeting those regions first. So for example, looking at Bala sales from last year, there was a lot of demand from Canada, and to me, naturally, that's where we would go first. And it's also one of the most accessible, but it tells me that search is coming from there. There's demand up there. However, I also have wonderful partnerships in different parts of the world where I know if we launch the brand correctly that it can be really successful given the success it's had in the US. So, we spoke at length about China, Japan, Korea earlier, but those are definitely the markets where there's significant volume to be had, and so definitely up for consideration. But I think if you're in a position where you're not, don't really have the resources to do that, maybe going where it's easiest, where you don't need so much regionalization. So like Canada, UK, where basically it's English speaking, could be easy, especially from, just doing Amazon 3P even.
Right. So kind of the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
So let's talk about if you do have those resources. Do you make a plan where it's like, look, we're going to, because I think of like Zia being on stage here. I think she was still at Forrester before her Shop Talk days and now eMarketer. But yeah, she was like, the biggest challenge is telling, bigger organizations it's going to be 5, maybe 10 years before this bet really pays off. But for a small D2C brand that does have some resources, what's the thinking behind that, Derrick?
The thinking is, you really need to see that you have some legs there at first, right? So one of the brands I used to work for named Janu, they sell fashionable medical apparel, so scrubs and lab coats. And, we had a very successful social media team and, nurses and anybody that wears scrubs, that's definitely a common thing that you would see across internationally, not just the U.S. And so when you would see a lot of the nurses, taking photos and posting photos of them in nice-looking scrubs, that catches fire. And we had a choice of, hey, we're seeing a lot of traffic, we're seeing a lot of inbound inquiry. Is it time to really kind of take that step of building out a domain for a specific country and allocating resources to for the language, currency, localization, et cetera. In the end, I think it was an initiative that we had wanted to do, but there were bigger initiatives for us at the time. And I think for a lot of other brands where you can kind of see a lot of potential success international, like you could dedicate those resources, kind of create that buzz. For OPTE, we also launched in China on Tmall platform. And but that was because the data that we had showed that, hey, the Chinese market is very into beauty devices, at-home skincare. So it's just flooded with so many things. That was great data for us, but it was also a problem because there were a lot of other beauty devices that we were competing against. And so, taking a lot of different learnings from the US, kind of sharing that with our counterparts from China and vice versa, was really a way for us to kind of see if it had legs.
So no personality test for markets. All right, let's talk a little bit about social. And John, I know when we were talking, he was actually calling me from Australia. I mean, tell us, we'll take a quick time out. How was the show in Australia? What's going on over there? Are people getting back out? Because Australia was pretty heavily locked down.
Yeah, they were pretty locked down. I mean, one guy from some city was like 320 days in lockdown total over the 2 years. So, but the show was sold out, and everybody was having a great time, and it was similar to this, a lot of networking. Just, we have pent-up frustration.
Right.
So that was good. That was good.
Well, tell us a little bit about,
Social.
when you guys are, when you're working with some of your coaching folks.
Social.
Where does social come in? Or are we making too much of social and it's just old school search and just hammer away on the stuff that works?
You're never making too much of social. Matter of fact, social is, I think social's been marginalized. And I think we've also, at the same time, put a whole lot of crap on top of it that really doesn't need to be there. Social is all about communication. And any place you can go anywhere in the world, and you'll find that there's a central place that does commerce in the middle of the city, and also in that central place is a coffee shop, right? That's because conversation is happening, and when there's conversation, there's gonna be commerce. So social media is the ability to have a conversation with one to many, and it's just that simple. And I made a video back in, I might even say that I might be one of the first, no, Janet Jackson was the first to go, viral on YouTube. But I mean, when it came to my brand that I used to sell bandanas. That's how I got started. And I would sell these bandanas on, Facebook, not Facebook, on eBay. And the number one question people would ask me, though, was how to fold a bandana to look like Tupac. Now, I'm a dinosaur, so this is back in the early 2000s, but that was the number one question. And, you know, I don't know if you know, I'm black. It's like we all know how to do that, right? But we were getting this thing that, you know, we were getting to all of these parts of the middle of the country, and they didn't know. So I had so many requests that I went ahead and pulled out a camera and made a video on how to fold a bandana just to answer this question. So I copy and pasted, and literally over 300,000 views of that video, tens of thousands of sales from that video. And that was like, that's when I realized, I mean, that's what social is just all about. It's about helping people and using your video camera to do that, to answer people's questions. If you do that, they'll trust you.
No, it's funny because I remember, like, you know, we called them do-rags, I guess, back
Yeah,
in the day.
the do-rag.
You know, it was all about getting that tuck on the side. But anyways, I guess only I had done that video, I wouldn't be here today. But, I mean, interesting kind of tie into what we were talking about earlier. So initial hires, customer service. It's about helping people. What are some of the social successes that you guys have seen? And June, I know, you know, we were just flipping through, you know, the Instagram-ready storefronts or pop-ups.
Yep.
How does that work? I mean, that's a little different than telling a story, but not really. It's about making the setting right for telling the story.
Yeah, I mean, the Bala brand, you know, I think is one of the most successful on social. You know, it's only really 3 years old, but you know, we have about 200,000 followers, and people just love sharing their uses of Bala and being a part of the community. And so we launched a campaign like #BalaBabes, and it's, you know, it's just enormous, the participation we get, and I think, you know, building that community and being an aspirational brand that people want to be a part of, it's such a crucial part of sales. And for me, as international head, to be able to translate that and really get that same activation from different parts of the world is the big challenge. But even though there are so many different platforms, you know, throughout the world, and especially in Asia, people are still doing the same thing, right? You know, it might be Instagram here, Red here, and you know, whatever else, but they're still doing the same. They're still taking pictures of themselves with your product and sharing it, and they just want to be a part of it. So it's just a really enormous phenomenon.
And Derrick, you have a little bit of education to the markets. Like, this is why this is such a unique product. This is a kind of a merging of two great things. How do you guys use social to kind of tell the story and, you know, adapt it locally to different markets?
Yeah, it was very challenging, but with a product that requires a lot of education and tutorials, it's about really making videos that show you why, you know, what it's for, what skin concerns, and also show before and afters, right? That's the thing about beauty, is like you always want to see a great before and after. What's it like, your skin like before you use the device or you put on makeup, and what does it look like after? And usually, you know, all is all real, like no, you know, no tricks with Photoshop or anything. So it's all, you know, it's all 100%, you know, natural, I guess, results after using the device. But yeah, you know, just creating content like that, just to really get people to understand what we were all about. Like June said, kind of creating that community. Like, one of the initiatives that we had planned was to build a Facebook community for those who suffer from hyperpigmentation. And there's a lot, so.
Yeah, so real quick to wrap up, we're running out of time, and Jim, I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit about the roundtables in a second here, but sustainability, we've been trying to weave that through the conversations. I mean, and I guess I'll just cut to this chase. How important is a D2C brand that needs to be global ready, kind of coming out of the gate? Where does sustainability factor in? Is it something that people are, you know, talking more about than doing? You know, kind of back to that. I think Zach made the point in the first part of the day. It's like, you got to really be authentic if you're going to be sustainable. And you just can't get out there and talk about what you're doing. You got to kind of, you know, let the action show. So what should people think about as far as, you know, and again, it could depend on your client, I mean, your customer and things like that, but Where's your heads at as far as sustainability meets being global ready if you're a D2C?
Well, I just came back from Australia, and they are so on fire with sustainability. I mean, because, I think that's a lot of places. I think we here in America are, it's catching fire, but there's those other countries are really, really serious about it. And so if you're talking about going, international, definitely, like you said.
Yeah, you live on an island. It's a big island.
Yeah, it's a
in
big
Australia,
island. I mean,
right?
come on,
But
right? It's a big island.
It's an island.
Beaches,
So yeah, that island culture, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great point. June?
Ironically, some parts of Asia are not so much,
Right.
not yet anyway. However, I think Gen Z is really emphasizing sustainability, as part of our product, as part of our product development, that's something we always consider, like the bangles inside are recycled metals, and so yeah, I think it just kind of becomes a part of the brand strategy for everybody, even though it's not the primary factor. And I think that's the trend we're going to continue seeing.
In fact, I wanted to talk more about that in the Asia panel, where we are, that was one of the trends we're seeing coming out of the pandemic, is there was this shift to health, and it went beyond just a personal health to like the health of the planet. And so it does seem like, broad sweeping generalization, but it does seem like the Asian culture that might have been behind, or those that were behind, are catching up. And I think that's a super positive development. Derrick, bring us home here.
I think it's especially important, and it's been over, I think, 10 years since since I joined the Honest company back then, and we were trying to start that conversation about safe, all naturally eco-friendly products, and ever since then, I like to think, hey, we were like one of those pioneers that was starting that movement for sustainability and just that mindset.
Right.
And here we are. We have a lot of great brands. I know that Phoebe from Attitude was here, and Woven also was speaking earlier. It's really important, and I agree with June. I think it is a generational thing, but soon enough, like we had probably maybe one or two inquiries about, hey, tell us about your company and its packaging and sustainability and stuff like that. So it's really important for consumers. They want to know that what they're buying into, what they're being a consumer of, is something that's going to be best for the world.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much. This was fun. I wanted to wrap up with something a little different, so this was great.